Good evening, everybody. Welcome to season 5, episode number 5 of the P.W.P Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Nwale Figueroa. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Today, I have Nkosi Cain coming through to have a conversation about himself and his work, and glad to have this opportunity. Peace, bro. How you doing today? How's everything?
How you doing, beloved? It's good to see you again, Noel. You look good as always. I had a tremendous day, and just for our conversation, I live in a state of perpetual joy, so I'm always good.
Awesome, awesome. Glad to hear that. Now, how would you describe yourself or define yourself?
I probably would define myself as an activist, an advocate, a servant leader, right? And a community builder. Yeah, those would be some of the titles I probably would give myself.
Excellent, excellent. All poets, got their start into poetry in different ways. What motivated you to begin your poetic journey?
It was interesting. I was at the time I started my poetic journey, I was on the inside. I was serving time. I had like, yeah, close to 2 decades to do. So one night I just happened to be up and this program came on through Def Poetry Jam, right? It was Def Poetry. And I'm an educator. I was an educator on the inside. I was an organizer on the inside, which sets the precedence for the work that I'm doing now.
Mhm.
So I sat there, I watched them do this poetry, and the first thing I thought to myself was, oh, wow, this is another way that I could teach class. That's what I thought, right? That this was another way that I could teach class if people don't want to come to class. And then I saw the movie Oz, and then I saw the poet in Oz, and that solidified it for me. From then on out, I started writing poetry, but not for entertainment purposes. I started extracting from my teachings, from my educational background, from my cultural awareness, and distilling that into my poetry.
All right, all right, excellent, excellent. Now in those beginning stages of your writing poetry, what were the specific subjects that you started diving into at that time?
I remember when I started out, I was trash, man. Let me just say that I was horrible because I didn't know how to write or how I was supposed to think about writing. I had read Walt Whitman, I had read Shakespeare, I had read most of the black poets, Gwendolyn. I had read, but I still didn't have my own voice and my own style of writing through my voice. So we started off, of the two or three of us started off with newspapers, right? Getting these newspaper articles. And from the newspaper articles, we moved into creating, I guess, a form of narrative based art, right? We extracted incidents or things from the newspaper and we'd write about them. Unbeknownst to me, we were taking a more social commentary approach at poetry, right? We were on the cusp of the poor righteous teachers or the last poets. So that was our style of poetry at the time, just trying to write some social commentary so we can go to the yard and give it to people who wasn't coming into our classrooms.
Right, right. And who like as you began your writing journey, maturing your writing style and what have you, who or what would you say helped you to develop your skills as a writer?
I think when I watched, I know it was. So I was part of a poetry circle when I was inside, right? We was called the Harvest Collective Moon. So I was around some dope artists, some heavy thinkers, and they were thinking more critically about their positionality inside and in their relationship to outside and the politics around that. Me, I was more creative. So those guys in that group inspired me. And then the guy Saul Williams, right? I saw the movie Slam, and it shifted my paradigm, right? So his style of writing, his wordplay, his engagement around information and how he used it to entertain people, but also inform, was another thing that kind of inspired me. And then the last thing I would say, Noel, is that I started finding my voice. I started finding my own style of engagement around poetry, and I started hearing my voice more clearer. And because I wasn't mimicking people, I had found my own style in the middle of all of these styles that I admire. I had found my own style in the middle of it all.
Right, right. And who would you consider to be some of your biggest inspirations in poetry? Who inspires you the most?
Oh man, yeah. So I would say Langston Hughes, definitely. Not even a poet, but I'm just gonna say Langston. I'm gonna say probably Gwendolyn, probably Nikki, definitely the last poets. Black Ice, Saul Williams, um, and some of the poets, some of the poets that don't even make it to the screen, right? Like there's some of the poets named Chris Slaughter. There's some poets named D Black. There's some poets who don't even make it to the screen that has inspired me throughout my, I guess, 20-year experience since I've been out here doing this work.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Now, shout out to Eric Crow Draven, because you were recently
Yes.
noted as one of the top poets at his event called Poetry as a Voice, and you were given an award at one of those events, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 weeks ago. How do you feel about, what does it feel like for you to be able to go into different poetry venues or poetry forms to be able to have the opportunity to express yourself poetically? Like, what is that feeling like for you?
Yeah. So first of all, that's a very good question, Noel, because if you're not a seasoned poet, you enter the arena in a way that's almost narcissistic. You don't hear no one else, but you're just waiting on your own. I happen to be a seasoned poet, and then my life is tempered with humility, gratitude, and servitude, right? Humility, gratitude, and servitude is what my life is tempered with. So when I enter the space, I'm entering the space differently because I'm entering the space from a community engagement stance. I want to hear the poets. I want to be inspired by the poets. I want to hear some good poetry that will inspire me. So I don't enter the space thinking, yo, Nkosi, you getting ready to get on the mic. I'm not even on I'm not even on the list because I'm entering the space from the bottom these days, right? I don't want to be on the top. I'm entering it from the bottom. And it just so happened, Noel, that I've never met our brother Eric in my life. I never met him. Someone invited me. I'm from Brooklyn. Someone invited me to the poetry show because they was featuring, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll come through." He's like, "Yo, I want you to come warm it up for me," and I'm like, "I don't even know what that means. Haven't did poetry in like 10 years." So
Mm,
I went there, recited a couple pieces, and obviously it stimulated them. And from that moment, I found myself back there every cycle that it happened. So when I enter these spaces, I enter with a degree of humility. I enter with a degree of gratitude. And also, like, if someone will sit there and listen to my art and listen to my creativity and accept it, that means the world to me. Number one, I only can keep my poetry by giving it away. I only become cerebral with my poetry when I give it away. So if someone is willing to take some time out of their life and sit there and listen to me, I am extremely humbled.
mm.
And then again, I guess that comes from me being a servant leader as well.
Right, right. But what you mentioned something that's very important. That's one of the things, one of the most important qualities a person can have, or a poet in this context can have, is humility, you know, because we as poets can't operate in the realm of transparency if we don't have any kind of humility, because we can't, like, regardless of what type of poetry we share or how we write, or whatever ideas we want to convey to our audience, none of that will matter if there's no level of humility, with not just our words, but how we present ourselves. No one's going to be receptive to your message if there's no humility in place. So that's definitely an important quality to have.
I totally agree, Noel. And that takes some that's a learning curve too, right? Because
Right.
I think at one point, even my journey into poetry, I think I had reached a certain level, and so I was walking in the door and my head couldn't fit through the door because I had reached a certain level and I thought that I was afforded certain, and it also shut me off to other poets. There might have been some dope poets in there, but I was so shut off because I was so tuned into self. So these days I use that body of learning, strip myself and engage in this poetry thing in a whole another way.
Right, right. Awesome, awesome. Now, when you sh overall, like when we're talking about, you sharing your work, what kind of what kind of responses have you received to your work? Like what kind of comments have people made in regards to the poetry that you've shared?
Man, it's supernatural. No, it's humbling to even say this. Like their perception of me is not my vision of me,
Mhm.
right? Like I don't. First of all, I'm in my skin, so I don't know how my poetry is impacting. I don't know how my poetry is landing. I know how I'm using my words, and I know how I'm using my craft, and I don't know about the impact.
Mhm.
So what they are receiving on the other end and conveying back to me is almost cognitive dissonance, but it's also me shrinking myself too because it sounds very lofty, right? Like uh, some of the compliments sounds very lofty. I don't know if I want to enter. I haven't even come to terms with that yet, right?
Mhm.
I know that there's a certain favor over my life, Noel, especially my gift when it comes to words, right? Like it's my love language. So I know that there's a certain gift and a certain skill set that has been afforded to me, and I wield it justly now. So I can imagine how it lands, but I'm grateful if it informs someone and then moves someone.
All right, awesome, awesome. That's definitely the main thing. You want your words to have meaning and an impact, and it is a rewarding feeling to know that your words have made an impact or made a difference in somebody's life, depending on what it is you're talking about in your poetry at a particular moment. But it's definitely a goal at the end of the day. You want your words to have a legacy. Think of all the poets that came before us. Do we still have their words because their words were their words had the weight of legacy to them. Like Maya Angelou, for example, we're still reading her poetry. Why? Because her words had weight to it, because her words were rooted in legacy, from everything that she's experienced. So that right there is another important aspect of being a poet, having weight to your words that will last even long after we're gone.
Yeah, yeah, the legacy work. I agree.
Mhm. Now, as far as how you approach your poetry, do you feel there's some subjects that you write about more than others, or are you the type of poet that just writes, whatever inspires you at the moment? Like, how do you approach your
Yeah,
poetry?
I think I write. Yeah, Noel, I think I write more social commentary poetry than I do other poetry. Now, I love poems, right? I love poems. I love onomatopoeias. Listen, I explore the whole genre of poetry, right? Whether from um, Walt Whitman on down to our black poets. So I love the whole genre of poetry, and I think my style or my yeah, sometimes it's interesting, man. Sometimes it's interesting because I think for me, when I think about my approach to poetry and my style, it's more social commentary, but I'm not impervious to encroach on love poems, poems that are strictly satire, right? Or blending my poems into some of my acts, right? Because I'm also right. I have some skits that I do, right? That's almost a thespian like,
Right.
but making sure that I explore. I try to figure out what the people want to hear because number one, I got to entertain the people too, right? Noel, like people are not going to hear me if I don't entertain them. So I have to practice my own art of understanding and embodying what entertainment feels like on the side. So I have to entertain some folks, but I have to be crafty enough to make sure I'm also pouring some information in it, even if it's a love poem. I'm crafting some information in it, even if it's a poem based on satire, right? That I'm making sure that some culture, some Afrocentricity is somewhere inside of that poetry because it is who I am. And so I can't go too far away from myself. So everything that I write has some social commentary in it.
Right, right. Awesome, awesome. Now, have you had any of your poetry published? And if not, is that something that you desire to do at some point?
Yeah, I don't even know if I desire that, Noel. I don't even know if I desire that. I think about maybe 4 years ago, I created a CD with one of the sisters from uptown. Actually, I was listening to it about 2 days ago. It's
Mm,
like 13 years old, right? So I was listening to myself from 13 years ago.
mm,
Um, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to create that because at least I have something that that's recorded. But it's never been my dream, man, to even print some of my poetry. I've been thinking more critically about it now, but that wasn't my motivation. That wasn't my aspiration to get my stuff in print. My aspiration was to get around, get my voice known, get some opportunities to generate some money, and also teach some people. That was my motivation.
all right, definitely, definitely. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because at the end of the day, we all have to do, what's best for us in terms of how we put ourselves out there, you know. Most might consider it unusual, but and still in all, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what's best for you, then so be it. But I'm sure has there been some like demand or encouragement like, hey bro, you got to have a book, some or things of that nature. Has that been the case?
Yeah, actually, two people at the poetry event asked me if I'm not published, can they publish my work? It's so hilarious. I'm not even yeah. So and this is not the first or second time, right? I've had a sister document me and create some small documentary around my poetry, but
Wow.
it's just never been my thing, right? To create these types of recordings, man, whether it be in uh, print form, whether it's digitized, whether it's acting. That's never been my goal. But these days, when I'm thinking about legacy, I'm more now thinking about how do I craft my stuff, how do I document my stuff, right? Create a book. How do I continue to build my brand through media and technology? How do I push myself into the future? And all of those things is connected to this question that you asked.
Awesome, awesome. Now, what's that feeling like for you when someone comes up to you and it says, "Hey, that poem you did really did something for me," and they give an explanation as to specifically why that poem impacted them? Like when encounters like that happen to you, what is that feeling like for you to know that your poem made a difference in somebody's life in one way or another?
Noel, you broke up a lot. So could you repeat that question, please?
Oh, sure, sure, not a problem. When someone approaches you, after you've done a poem, for example, they really felt something from your poetry, like something you said or the subject matter of your poem really made an impact on them and made a difference in their life, and they explain to you why they felt such a way to that particular poem. Like when you have encounters with people like that regarding your poetry, how does that make you feel to know that your poetry made a difference in somebody's life?
Yeah, that those experiences are impactful. Some Most of the time, those experiences let me know that this information that's coming to me and through me wasn't for me, right? It probably was for this person who I'm talking to. So that's the first thing. The
Right.
second thing I say is, damn, like I wrote this in the darkness in prison, like I don't know, 20 years ago, and it's relevant today. The last thing I do is shrink myself because I take the applause, but I don't like that. I'm un, it's not that I'm uncomfortable. Um, I don't do it for that, right? I receive it. I operate from a place of grace. I'm gratitude. I'm thankful for these words of encouragement. But it's really not like that's just the cherry. That's the cherry on the cake, right?
Right.
Because I don't do it for the cherry. I'm
Right.
doing it for like it just so. it, I do feel that, man. I'm not desensitized. I don't operate through toxic masculinity, so it's heartfelt when someone come up to me and say, "Yo, Nkosi, that poem was true." My soul rejoices, and then once again I started thinking about when I wrote the poem, the purpose of this poem, and man, I had totally forgot about that poem until I recited it. So now it's yours and mine.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Now let's talk about representation for a minute, because I'm sure you've heard that word representation thrown around in circles, different circles in one way or shape or form. How important is it to you that you're representing yourself in your totality through your writing? You know, taking everything about you into consideration. You'll know your manhood, your blackness, religion, if that applies to you, education, life experiences, all the things that make you who you are. How important is it to you to make sure that when you write your poetry, that you're representing yourself in your totality?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question because even when I write, I'm cognizant that I'm writing with three cultures or three histories, right? I'm writing from a place that's relegated to Africa. I'm writing from an African perspective. I'm
Mhm.
also writing from an African American perspective, and lastly, I'm writing from a Black perspective, which alleviates that necessity for division. So I'm writing from these three fortunate places, from these three fortunate experiences, right? I'm writing from man's inhumanity to man, and I'm writing from the resilience that emanated from that. I'm writing from Malcolm. I'm writing from Martin. I'm writing from Gabriel Prosser. I'm writing from Denmark Vesey. I'm writing from Nat Turner. I'm writing from Henry Highline Garnet, right? I'm writing from David Walker's Appeal. So my writing have to be connected to what my mission is and who I represent and who I am, right? So most of my writings have to connect with advocacy or with some, I don't know, like I have to be able to move the ball forward and move the conversation forward. So I think my writing um, is connected in terms of representation, making sure that, definitely that my culture is represented in the space, and making sure that my identity is secure. Now, another thing is that I work with an unusual identity, right? I'm a justice impacted person. I served close to 20 years. Now, the ironic thing about justice impacted people is that we lose our voice in it. And so when we come out, our voice is further marginalized. So it's important for me to activate my agency and autonomy around my voice, to center my voice, which is also centered through this narrative based art or through this spoken word genre. So representation is quintessential for me, but I also know that representation have to show itself in human engagement, right? In the words that we use, in the way that we walk, in the way that we represent ourselves. And lastly, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. So I'm writing from a collective place, right? I'm writing from a Sankofa place. I'm writing backwards to move us forward. So my writing, and through my writing and through who I am, you can pretty much tell where I'm writing from. And once again, it's all tempered with humility, servitude, and gratitude. I hope I answered your question, Noel.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. No question. That's awesome. And with that being said, that provides the perfect segue to this next portion of this interview. Over the next few minutes, I like to give you some time, to share some of your pieces with our audience so they can have an idea of what your poetry is all about. So at this time, the floor is yours.
All right. I don't usually preface my poem, but I think being that we're on a platform that I may as well. This piece is entitled Darfur. This is a piece about some of the genocide that has happened in Darfur, in Sudan, and in Africa. This piece is entitled Darfur. Come, let us sit in the cipher, spark peyote, put our ears to the earth and listen. Death mantras sounding like Arabic songs, piercing the call of a dawn. But this poem is not about Islam, more like the Trail of Tears or Buried Hearts at Wounded Knee. Let us pour libation for uncounted bodies in Darfur, for the tainted soil of headless corpse planted by Janjaweed in Darfur, a place where cemeteries are trapped in children's laughter. And that just doesn't seem natural to me, but this poem is not about nature, more like support for Sudan, as if Darfur was Israel. And the Wailing Wall included Bob and the Wailers. No redemption songs, no woman, no cry, simply flatline poems crying from the belly of Africa. This poem is anti-IMFs and conflict stones, trilateral commissions and conflict zones. In the West, Darfur seems unknown like COINTEL. See, this is deeper than the Panthers, more like wholesale Tuskegee experiments with AKs. I say it's time to mount up. A million-man march to Darfur, Farrakhan the five-star, Maxine water riding hardtop, and then off to Darfur must. Because what happens in Darfur happens to all of us. She appeared to be about 30. Her body structure was like that tennis player, though a bit hunched over. She asked me for $1. Her hands were bronze from years of subways, underground railroad. She said living there was part of Harriet's legacy. And every dollar contributed to that history, those underground trips. The way I was dressed, she asked me, was I an investor or something? And if so, I needed to invest my dollars before I got laid off. She said I looked the trusting type, nothing like Ponzi or Madoff. Man, give me $1, she said, as if only my dollar could take her there, to a time when her hands held more than poverty, more than the stench and filth she's seen in Saigon, Hiroshima, Vietnam, freedom fighter of the dark. She told me to believe in Zen. I didn't quite know what she meant, but I was meditating on transferring this yen, this dollar, this sister, spirit similar to my mother. I dug into my pocket, sort of felt like runaway slaves running through my palms, Apaches riding horseback within the creases of my hands. In fact, I think I felt a Black Panther. She smiled, asked me if $1 would kill me, like those in Cote d'Ivoire, Indonesia, South Africa, Jamaica, places where death costs less than $1. She smiled, then said, fuck your dollar. It's too much blood on it anyway. And then she shuffled off back through that underground railroad. She said my poetry was mere surface talking. Maybe I should go deeper to a place where the soul speaks in spiritual tongues beyond lust, where we could dance around the universe like old souls and give birth to virgin thoughts. I told her that I've always been here, that I'm in the kinky follicles of her hairs, the itch at the center of her palms, mammary glands, clothed, unclothed, queen robe, it all. I told her we could be synchronized hearts, beating to staccato Kama Sutra percussions, moving beyond the drum, beyond fingertips touching. Said she felt my mind's navigational system programmed to her now valley, and that I was only searching for the entrance. I told her no, I was searching for another route to God. I wanted to ease in past her insecurities and repair broken dreams, perhaps probe her soul like stem cell research and count to the Phyllis Hyman in her. Or maybe I could just drop these verses, lock our palms, sing Southern freedom songs, sing songs for Darfur or revolutionary songs until I resurrect the Angela Davis in her. But she said my poetry was mere surface talking. Maybe we should go deeper. I said, yet, like we first met in a place called Commit. You'll call me a star and I'll call you a set, live a dynasty or two and have a child named Heru. And if that's too far to see, then just reach out for me. Reach out and usher me as I unlock doors where rooms of passion remains tucked away. Reach for me. Reach for me like Somalian arms reaching out to you in food camps, and I will be there, lurking, just trying to create some more verses. She's like water for chocolate. Her lips flavor cafe con leche, her sways with the sounds of Havana. I think I can sense Africa in her. Common sense that she needed something different, but with a swagger like Victor Manuel, Tito Puente got my soul dancing merengue. Most he's sweet like Cuban entrees. Arroz blancos con habichuelas negras got me speaking Spanish dialects, ancient mother tongues. Her tongue soothed me like Satrin. This with clairvoyant talent, she peeped my game. Now I want to be like Mike. Hang my jersey in a rafter, put my game in the Hall of Fame, show ESPN clips of how I scored my points. In fact, take this point. She and I, we're a team now. She called me into existence doing late night meditation. I came with the sun. She calls me Ra. She's antiquity in the present, my Harlem Renaissance, a Langston Hughes, poor boy blues. She's the blessed and Clothin and Zinga's warrior cry. She's a Pilates. Buns of steel and 3 boot camps at night. She works me out. And that feels so natural, like flaxseed, ginger root, horsetail, smells like love spell, called the witch doctor, I'm cursed. Burnt sage around my body during the night, my night nurse. Her thighs are therapeutic. Her eyes are like rainbows, illuminate me. Her smile's a symphony of love song sings to me. Maxwell's pretty wings and all. Music so beautiful and all. She claps my face with both hands. I kiss both of them. Told if two men ever loved her this much, then I'm both of them. Mi amor, de mi vida. My poetry is sacred, like her life and her spirit. Yo te quiero, mi amor. Last poem. When it's all said and done, I just want to be mentioned. I mean, mentioned in the rest in peace epitaphs written on the corners of every hood like futureless thugs. Mentioned that I sung a song for you, danced with my father, and found ribbons in the sky inside the side pocket of poverty. Mention me at Lyric Lounge, Sugar Shack, food for thought and amongst real poetry poets. Mention that I found redemption while walking the green mile. My 10 cells, suffering souls in cell blocks, steel bar matrix where there was no choice of red or blue, only state greens and blacks. I want to be mentioned. When it's all said and done, mention me in your thin quains, your quinzanes, and when y'all write, I want y'all to mention me in your quatrains, limericks, and haikus. Better yet, wrap my name like bandanas around Tupac's life and mention me in Ballads of a Soldier. Mention me with Chinua Achebe when things fall apart, or Haki Matabuti's Black Men Obsolete, Single, and Dangerous because home is a dirty street. Then all my block broken dreams stay glued to the blocks. I want to be mentioned. Mention me with the prison letters. Mention me with the prison letters of Dr. King, and I'll tell you why the case bird really sings and why James Baldwin saw evidence of things unseen. Mention me, and when it's all said and done, I just want to be mentioned. Thank you.
Raw lyrics for days. The imagery and the content, man. Yo, pure storytelling without question. Thank you so much for sharing those pieces, man. That's excellent, without a doubt. Awesome,
Hey, brother,
awesome,
that
awesome.
was a workout.
I could only imagine, man. You put all your energy into your workload, and I'm loving the energy, loving the energy. Thank you so much. Now,
That felt good too.
most definitely. Now, if you could collaborate with any poet, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
All right, so a couple things, man. Recently, maybe about a year ago, there was this brother named Christ is Tony Ricks who I did poetry with. Man, we have I don't know how many collaborations we had. He passed about 2 or 3 years ago, and he was a real heavy hitter on the set. Man, Christ is real phenomenal poet. Um, and I was grateful for the time that we had, man, and for some of the pieces that him and I created. And we traveled all over the. I don't know where we hadn't gone, sleeping on people's floors in different states just to do poetry, right? So, really, really cool, man. But to answer your question, of course, it would be to write again with him. But I think I would love to have the opportunity to write with Nikki Giovanni.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, she's one of my personal favorites, and one
Yeah.
of the first people that I got into when I started writing poetry for myself. So that's definitely
Hmm.
for sure. Now, do you have any projects or events coming up that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, actually, I supposed to be going to our comrades Eric's venue and coming up in Jersey. I think
Oh, that's right.
it's
That's right.
June,
Awesome, awesome. That's May 2nd,
yeah,
right?
matter of fact, yeah, that's right. That's May 2nd. That's correct.
Awesome.
At 22 West Main Street in Penns Grove, New Jersey. Yeah, May 2nd, 22 West Main Street in Penns Grove, New Jersey. That's correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. And aside from that, are there any others that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm doing some things at some people's event this Friday. I don't even know the whole setup. Listen, they just want me to come, so I'm listen, whatever they at this point, look, whatever y'all need, whatever, however I can keep y'all tired wheel going. Because the thing about it too, Noel, is that long as we keep this poetry thing going, we leave room for new artists to come and extend this space. We need new life in this space. The space needs to be protected and extended. So we always need to be breeding new artists and supporting new up and coming artists who are doing this work as well.
Definitely true. Definitely true. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Because I want to ask you this. You've put in some years, you would say, in the poetry scene, right? So based on what you've experienced in the poetry scene overall, right? You've seen, where you've been in the scene. You've seen how the scene was when you got into it. You see where the poetry scene is now. Where do you see the poetry? What direction do you see the poetry scene going in the future?
So I I was not enthused by the direction of spoken word poetry in the last 5 years. I thought it was going somewhere, and then within this last 5 or 6 years, spoken word poetry took a dip.
Hmm.
The venues shut down. Um, Poets had to try to find places to go into, and then COVID happened. So people put their pen down and start turning inward, starting writing more narrative based art, right? And so spoken word poetry kind of took a dip, but
Hmm.
it seems like it's coming back up, right? And I would hope that that this art form, that this genre get an opportunity to land in the spaces where other art forms are at and allow others to generate some revenue like the others are doing. Once I realized that this spoken word thing wasn't paying my bills, I had to go get me some jobs, man. I had to get busy because listen, Noel, I had did this art form and perfected this art form because I was under the impression that I could generate a livelihood off this. This was what I was hearing when I was, but when I came home, listen, we paved the concrete for years and it never happened. So I'm like, man, I got to go find me a job and make me some money. I still hold on to the art form, but I also have learned that, listen, like you got to cross your I's and your T's first.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because that's probably the dream for most of us, myself included. But when real life hits, you gotta take responsibilities, to heart and do what's necessary until such a time where that can be a possibility. You know, I don't rule it out for myself personally, but bills got to be paid, so we all got to do what's necessary until that opportunity presents itself. But definitely got to keep that pen moving without question,
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
question.
And I don't write, Noel, I probably, not, well, let me not say that because I've written like 3 or 4 poems for my job. So I do still write. But these days I'm not. Yeah, I have so many poems in my head and in my heart that I don't really need to write. Listen, I can just go through my Rolodex. It don't make sense to write anymore.
Right.
Goddamn there.
All right. You got a whole
Yeah,
archive to choose from.
yeah, but I do continuously need to be scrapping that papyrus.
Right. That's what's up. That's what's up. Now, before we close out, for those that are not familiar with you, where can you be found either on social media or website that's available for you?
Yeah, so I can be found. I don't even know what to say besides you can Google Nkosi Cain. I'm definitely on LinkedIn on Cain and Nkosi, and I love networking on LinkedIn. So if
Mhm.
that's definitely a good place to find me on LinkedIn, uh, on Facebook, on Instagram. Um, Part of the work that I do, I'm connected to that also. I run a company called Touchdown, so you can find me at Touchdown NYC. I'm also at the God Squad. You can find me at the God Squad as well.
Awesome. That's what's up, man. Well, Cozy Kane, thank you for coming through. Awesome conversation and equally awesome poetry. Loving the vibe and appreciate your time coming through on my show. I wish you all the best with your future endeavors, and we will definitely meet up again real soon.
I look forward to it, brother Noel. Thank you for having me. And take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Next episode, y'all, season 5, episode 6 to be announced. So stay tuned to all of the Poets for Purpose channels to stay connected for the latest updates. Thank you all for your support and participation with Poets for Purpose. You all have a good evening and God bless. Thank you.
God bless.